And we're back. Well, tax season's here, folks, and you know...
Hi there.
Whoa, where'd you come from?
April here to tell you about the tax filing software from TaxAct.
Seriously, were you hiding behind my desk?
Seriously, TaxAct makes it easy to get your maximum refund.
Well, you heard it here first, folks.
Switch to TaxAct today and you can start for free.
Or as we say in Radioland...
Subtle. TaxAct. File for less and get more.
See taxact.com for details.
If you love to be remembered as the person who gives the best birthday gifts, I'm here to tell you that 1-800-Flowers.com is your ultimate birthday gifting destination. 1-800-Flowers has thoughtful and artfully created options that are guaranteed to deliver the best birthday surprise. Shop thousands of unique gifts at 1-800-Flowers.com for exclusive offers and great values. To order today, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/tune-in. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/tune-in.
Another week, another true crime documentary recommendation. You are, of course, listening to What's Up, Doc, the true crime documentary podcast. As always, I am your host, Gemma Delaney, and as always, I am here to tell you what is up. What is up with the latest offerings that are out there in the true crime documentary world. As always, guys, if you would like, you can give us a follow on social media. We are at What's Up, Doc podcast, and you'll find us on Instagram, you'll find us on Twitter, and you'll find us on Facebook as well. Season 3 continues, and we are continuing with our special guests. And this week, we've got a nice little surprise for you. We have got from Murder Most Irish podcast, Emma and Sarah Jane. So, guys, crime scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel, which, of course, is about the infamous Elisa Lam case. I'm going to ask some stupid questions first of all. Did you know much about this case before watching the documentary?
Yeah, because I think it's one of those, because obviously the video that went viral of her in the elevator, I think everybody who watched that video got sucked down into a Wikipedia rabbit hole and then into like another article, like you just eventually ended up reading absolutely everything about it.
Yeah.
But the only thing I didn't really know was the full ins and outs of the case, like with regards to police and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't super aware of all of that.
And I wasn't aware that the hotel was such a shithole.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say this on this podcast?
Do you swear?
Have you listened to What's Up, Doc? Do I?
No, but in case you're like, don't swear.
My favorite saying on this is shaking like a shitting dog. I think that's probably the most. I actually listened back to my episodes and like, my God, I use that phrase far too much. But like, when you say like you were aware of the case, did you follow it in real time, or is this something you stumbled across after the fact?
I didn't follow it in real time.
I'm the same.
Onto it after the fact because
I
actually found it through a podcast I was listening to, and they mentioned this case, and it was on this website called Cracked.com. That's where I initially found it. Found the article on Cracked.com, then found the video on YouTube, and then was like, "What the fuck is this?" Because when you watch it initially, it is freaky as fuck. Like it's incredibly freaky.
Yeah,
you know.
I think I might have seen it in real time.
No, I didn't follow it in real time.
I think Kevin might have sent it to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a friend of mine at one point was going to go work in Interpol. In terms of like if computer forensics, evidence exploratory, and like, was at this time when this happened was going to like seminars around like how you put like cases together for like online child pornography cases and how do you put the evidence together.
God, that is fascinating.
Like really difficult. And I remember he sent it to me when it like went, because he would have been, because of like his interest in terms of like understanding the dark web and how you find things, he would have came across this when it happened. And I remember him sending it to me to be like, have you heard about this girl and have you seen this video? And I was like, the video's so creepy. So I remember it in real time, but I remember following it, and then I remember like in real time finding out where she was and how she passed away. but I never went into the detail like you about like what the investigation was. But I think for me, honestly, this was like an open and shut case when I saw the video and then heard the outline of it.
I saw the video and I read about it, but there was nothing else really about it at that point when I read about it. It was just mainly kind of, this is unsolved and we don't know what happened and blah, blah, blah. But that was the narrative that was being pushed by the internet.
Yeah. Do you know, this was one of the very first cases. Like when I started this podcast out first, I used to do polls on Instagram and let the listeners choose what documentaries I was going to review. And this is one of the first ever cases in season 1 I was asked to review. And I was like, yep, there's not a fucking documentary about it. That's all well and good. You can't just throw things. I'd love to, but there's not a... So I've been waiting so long for this documentary to come out to be able to cover this case. Do you know what I mean? Because I can't just you wouldn't believe the amount of times I've cases thrown at me or even shows thrown at me. And I'm like, that's actually a drama. That's not a documentary. I still can't review that either. It has to be documentary, like, you know, clues in the title. But so I've been waiting so long for this. I made a meme about it, for fuck's sake. I've been waiting so long for this. And do you know what I mean? I was so disappointed by this documentary. And look, we discussed this when we had our production meeting. I was so disappointed with this for so many reasons. But I felt like the narrative of this was just a little all over the place. It was 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 even different documentaries within a documentary. Is that is that just me now, or is that a fair statement to make?
Not at all. I thought that there was a documentary about a death of a girl. There was a documentary about Skid Row. There was a documentary about a hotel. There was a documentary about mental health. There was a documentary about web sleazing. It just seemed that the guy who directed it, or whoever wrote or directed it, was trying to shove every piece of detail and information you could get into it.
That's a nice little segue actually to my next point there, Emma, is that this was like... It's not like this was, you know, a first timer. This was directed by Joe Berlinger. For fuck's sake. Brothers Keeper, the Paradise Lost trilogy, you know, the Ted Bundy tapes more recently. It's interesting, right? Because when he obviously as well last year did the Netflix drama Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile, which was kind of universally slated. And I remember reading an article at the time saying, you know, Berlinger should stick to the documentaries. And then I'm just not so sure when I saw this. It seems like, and I know Joe Berlinger is at home crying into his, you know, cornflakes because Gemma in County Wexford in Ireland, who he's never fucking heard of, is, you know, disappointed in his documentary making skills. But would it be fair to say, like, it's nearly this weird amalgamation of drama, a drama and a documentary? It's like Joe Berlinger, the drama director, and Joe Berlinger, the documentary maker, kind of.
Yeah, and I think as well, I will say this first, it's really well shot. Yeah. And it's shot like almost like a noir detective movie. That's how it felt like it was shot, and the way it's lit is kind of like that as well. Yeah. So I could see what he was trying to do, but he didn't have the material to try and do what he was trying to do. I think that's what happened with it, to be honest with you.
And I also think he managed to find individuals that were just desperate to talk to him. Yeah.
I should also mention that this was the executive producer on this is Ron Howard.
Fuck off, really?
I know. Everybody I've said that to is like, fuck off. Yeah. Ron Howard was the executive producer on this. So, I mean, you can imagine when I heard this was being made and being released, I was like, you know, smacking me hands together. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. But yeah, so like it should have been amazing. It's a little bit confusing, the narrative, I think personally, a couple of different documentaries in the one. But I mean, to jump back, you know, not to be getting ahead of ourselves. Yeah. I think, you know, you hit the nail on the head there. It's in terms of the way it's shot and that very film noir. I thought as well, and you might not agree with me, but do you know the reenactment scenes? So, you know, the bits that show when Elisa comes to LA, shows her like, they're trying for this like dream-like state. It reminded me of, reminded me of, oh God, I'm going to forget the name. It's The Lovely Bones. The Lovely Bones.
Yes,
it's
it was
very,
that kind of like filter.
yeah.
The like hazy filter over it almost.
But as well, it was like a shot on top of a shot on top of a shot, you know, and they're kind of interlocked and interwoven on top of each other to do this kind of like dreamlike sequence. Is it a little bit fancy for a documentary? Maybe, I don't know. Is it a little bit jarring? It's not. It's probably a bit trendy for a documentary.
Like, you know, those those true crime shows that where they do reenactments. But I don't like reenactments anyway. I hate them, to be honest with you. They do nothing for me. I find them really tacky and kind of cheap looking. And so when that was happening in the documentary, it really took me out of it. And especially those scenes where she's typing, I was like, this is like Sex and the City and Murder, She Wrote, like interspersed in a true crime documentary. It was
I know
so
what you mean.
strange.
It is very Sex and the City, actually. Yeah, isn't it? It is very Sex and the City.
She was just like, oh my God, I'm in LA. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like,
I got the feeling that was just done to. So I tried to look at it again after we decided to do this, and decided to, if I didn't know anything about it. So if I didn't know anything about her and I didn't know anything about this case, and I thought maybe it was done to like build up a sense of like loss for the like the people who are newly watched, like to get to know her almost, so that like when what happens to her, regardless of that, is awful, but that like you kind of feel somehow like worse about it, almost like you're connected to it. But I just thought, like, for me it was just like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you spending the time? And you're gonna have to go to the next bit, but she just came across like an absolute melt. I was like, who wants to hang around with this young woman? Like,
no, I'd agree with you. I think there was an effort there to, you know, show this side of Elisa Lam that we haven't seen online, because so often in these cases, obviously the victim gets completely lost in the crazy narrative or in the murder or, you know, lost to the killer's story or whatever. I do feel like there was a concerted effort, but it just kind of fell flat. But on the flip of that, like, I mean, the very opening shots and the very opening scenes of this documentary, we got there in the end, lads, 17 minutes and we're finally talking about the opening scenes. Fucking hell. But yeah, you know, it's the first thing they're saying is like, you know, it's this, I think the direct quote is, it's this dark nexus of energy, talking about the hotel as if it is
they made it really
an entity.
Supernatural, didn't they?
Yeah.
They were like ghosts, demons. I was like, but it is that thing that people do, and I went throughout the documentary, especially those opening shots and the way that people were talking about it. It is that thing that people say about true crime, where almost you want to create this idea that it's supernatural and otherworldly, because the idea of what's actually happening is too much to deal with. So I kind of felt like that kind of ran through it, to be honest with you. But yeah, there's opening shots and they were all like, oh, there's dark energy, there's ghosts. I was like, what? It's on Skid Row. What do you think is going to happen here? It is literally on Skid Row, where the largest homeless population probably in the world is living. Crime and violence are so high, where drug addiction and murder and fucking sex workers, like, where? And then they were like, the hotel is a demon spirit, and I was like, no.
Called John.
The woman who managed the hotel, I don't know her name, but she was like, this is the best place ever.
I love this hotel.
We've done so much. And I was like,
woman,
this place is shithole.
Stay of it.
It's like, what?
She had kind of a Veronica Lake kind of vibe about her, didn't she? So,
absolutely.
But I feel as well that, like, parts of this documentary, I was like, am I watching like American Horror Story? Like, it's fucking, it's this, there are these eerie, quirky, you know, characters in it. All these oddities, and it's nearly like a bit of a freak show. And I may say that with the utmost respect, but
no, I know what you mean.
All these very, very strange characters that are somehow interconnected with this, like I said, dark nexus of energy that is the hotel, you know. And then I think another quote was like, there's insanity within those walls. Like all these kind of very, you know, pointed comments. So like from the get-go, the hook is that this hotel is a character within this story. It's, you know, I'm not saying it is, but in this documentary, it's as important a character.
Even the hotel manager keeps calling calling the hotel She.
Yeah.
She is, and I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and like it did have like this, like, because me and my husband watched it and he was like, it was such a nice hotel when it was built, and I was like, yeah, so was the bus terminus in fucking town when it was built in like 1970s, but like show now, like I was like, that doesn't hold up.
You know, when you walk in and they show their shots of the foyer
is beautiful. Wouldn't
you
feel like such a jip when you got there?
Yeah,
like, wouldn't you be like,
when two people that were, when they walked in and they showed pictures, I was like, this is gorgeous.
Yeah.
And then they went upstairs and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. The dark nexus.
But there's
The dark
like,
nexus.
And then when they had the audacity as a hotel to put like another lobby in the same hotel and charge more money. And then they were like,
welcome to the same but different hotel.
Yeah, they literally were like, but there's a plot. The plot tickets, they have to share the lift. And I was like, what? Of course they do. It's the same building.
Hotel, yeah.
Like, the detective that was like, they had to share the lift with all the riffraff that were in the rest
like
of
the scum.
Yeah, there's just some people. Like, because even when we were watching that and they kept referring to all, they were like, that guy kept saying, those people that were in the other hotel were in lifts with like previous murders. And I was like, I could be in a lift with a previous murderer in any building.
But also, if you're going to book a hotel in Skid Row, you know what you're getting.
Get onto Google Maps,
like, you know,
and
what
do
you're
a
getting.
walk around.
Like, it's you're right when you said that it's almost a character, and it's probably like, to be honest, for me, it felt like it was the main focus of the entire
Yeah, I'd agree with you 100%. 100%. It felt like every episode, and there's only 4 and they're like 55 minutes long, but every episode seemed to focus on the hotel. And then Elisa Lam felt like an afterthought, like, oh shit, this is what this documentary is about. Oh shit, we have to go back to this subject, and a little bit to be thrown in about her. Like I said, the Lovely Bones-esque kind of imagery, something she wrote on Tumblr or a fucking book she was reading, and then it's back to and do you know what I thought of as well about this is just a lot of repetition, a lot of the same information again and again. And again and again.
This is the thing. They didn't have enough information. So he made a 4-hour documentary with enough information that I would say would do an hour and a half max.
Yeah.
And that's pushing it.
I'd say that's pushing it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just
so much filler in his hotel. Even the Richard Ramirez bit.
Yeah, the Richard Ramirez bit, and then that bit about the other serial killer.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And the woman, remember, who jumped to her death and killed a man as she landed on him.
And that once again was them trying to be like, the hotel is evil. Like that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. Now when I think about it more than I'm talking to you, I'm like, what the fuck?
I feel like almost it, you know, this documentary, and again, no disrespect to Elisa Lam or her case, and I do feel like, you know, we need a fully fleshed out, respectful documentary that focuses on her. But maybe this documentary should have been about the Cecil Hotel and nothing else. It's very confused narrative. There's so much going on. Like even it like you said, it you know, starts out with this hook, and it's all about like, you know, this evil hotel and how the hotel will, you know, another quote I think was like, you know, it's like a trap, you know, it'll trap you once you enter the hotel, you know, like, for fuck's sake, Jesus.
And then you leave. Like,
I don't know why those other people didn't leave. When they were like, it got to the 5th day and the water was brown and we had no water pressure. And then the girl was like, and we were brushing our teeth and drinking the water.
God.
And I was like,
yeah.
Like,
and I thought their inclusion was really bizarre, actually, as well. That was
so bizarre.
Anybody listen to this who hasn't seen the documentary, just for context, they had 2 guests that stayed in the hotel that were like very briefly interviewed in a news segment at the time of Elisa Lam's disappearance. And then they got her. And then there's this whole, you know, talking head, you know, piece to camera bit with them. Yeah. And you're kind of like, why? Like, what are they even doing in it? To tell you that the water tasted shite and that it was brown, and that, you know, to this day they think about the fact that they drank the water that she obviously, we know now, was
it's just an anecdote. It's just an anecdote. It's like something you'd be like, oh, I was in that hotel. But here's this documentary maker to come along to be like, do you want to be main parts in this fucking 4-hour?
I have a serious question. Go on.
Go for it.
If we went to a hotel and something was in, right? So they were literally like, that poor girl was decomposing. Like, she was heavily decomposed when they found her body. And then it then came out that these people were drinking the water and bathing in the water. Would you go on the news and announce it to everybody.
I drank dead lady water.
Like, no. I wouldn't tell anybody.
I am leaving.
I had bottles of Evian. Like, I never drank the water, and I didn't shower for 5 days.
And they didn't leave. I would have been like, I'm leaving now.
Immediately.
I
want
my money back.
Absolutely.
That's the trap.
That's the Cecil Hotel trapping you.
They tried to leave. They opened the door and they were back in the room. Like Jesus Christ. Yeah. Fucking shining, like, yeah.
I was expecting John Malkovich to jump out at any time.
Oh my God.
And then, like, again, I know I'm repeating myself now, going on about this repetition, but I feel like the whole documentary, you know, if we was to do it in a synopsis, it's a lot about the hotel, very little about Elisa Lam, and then a lot of LAPD cops going, we couldn't believe it. We didn't know what was going on. Couldn't believe it, you know. Like, what the fuck? Like, over and over and over again. Jesus Christ, every 5 minutes going, we just couldn't believe it. We just didn't know what's going on. And like, that was it. That was it in a really crude
I liked the one that kept going, we checked on the roof.
Yeah, he kept saying we checked on the roof.
Checked on the roof. We didn't know she was there.
That was Tim Marshall, I think that was. Detective Tim Marshall.
I'll tell you what I did like. You know that lady with the grey hair bob lady?
I liked her voice.
She was kind of like, she had more kind of cop on than most of them. She was like, you know, people say the hotel is haunted. She was like, but I do think that, you know, anywhere there's been a lot of pain and a lot of death, there is, you know, you can kind of feel it sometimes. Yeah. Somewhere. Like when you go to a morgue or when you go to a cemetery, there is a different feeling there. So she was saying, yeah, there is, but she wasn't like, it's not fucking ghosts.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
There was so much conjecture on that CCTV footage.
Like, they slowed it down.
They sped it up. It was slowed down by 45 seconds. If you slow anything down by 45 seconds, it would look weird. I was like, she was having a mental health episode.
Yeah. Like, and then the fact that there was 53 seconds of the footage missing then as well. And then there's, you know, where the elevator door jumps. So obviously, look, that footage is...
And we're back. Well, tax season's here, folks, and you know...
Hi there.
Whoa, where'd you come from?
April here to tell you about the tax filing software from TaxAct.
Seriously, were you like hiding behind my desk?
Seriously, TaxAct makes it easy to get your maximum refund.
Well, you heard it here first, folks.
Switch to TaxAct today and you can start for free.
Or as we say in Radioland,
subtle. TaxAct. File for less and get more.
See taxact.com for details.
If you love to be remembered as the person who gives the best birthday gifts, I'm here to tell you that 1-800-Flowers.com is your ultimate birthday gifting destination. 1-800-Flowers has thoughtful and artfully created options that are guaranteed to deliver the best birthday surprise. Shop thousands of unique gifts at 1-800-Flowers.com for exclusive offers and great values. To order today, visit 1-800-Flowers.com/tune-in. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/tune-in.
Like you said at the start, it's really freaky when it's viewed out of context.
Exactly.
And I remember, like, again, because I remember this was one of the first cases I was ever asked to cover, and there was no fucking documentary about it. And I went and had a look at this footage, and I was like, fucking, what is going on? And I remember particularly, and I don't know why, but what really got me was her hands. Do you know the kind of the thing she
got me was the bit where she looks out and then hides in the corner. When I remember vividly, like being like having like the hairs on the back of my neck stand up and being like, oh, and then one of
those things where you're watching it and you're gonna be like, I'm just ready to stop this because I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, and at the point of me seeing the video, she wasn't found, so no one knew what had happened to her. And yeah, I just remember being like, oh, is someone out there? And it wasn't really explained. And like because at that point, her family never spoke. So like we see in the documentary that the police come out and give a statement and the family are standing like devastated behind them when she's not found yet. And they never came and put any context to be like, she's on medication. Yeah. Like they obviously, and I kind of felt, and this like could be completely wrong, but I kind of felt that the police led them to this like, well, clearly someone was there and someone was
like in fairness to the web sleuths, like we said, just you look at that footage, it looks like she's hiding from someone. It looks like she's running from someone. So I mean, that's at first glance of somebody shows you a video of a girl running scared, you know, frantically pushing buttons on an elevator, the door closed and she's looking in and out. She seems to be hiding in the corner. She seems to be then having an argument or, you know, talking to someone outside because her hands are moving. And then she runs off in the opposite direction. You would absolutely foul play. You would. Like, that'd be 100%. Your natural.
And when I saw it first, I was like, there's someone following her.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Like,
without all of the other factors, without knowing all of that additional information.
As you said, without context.
Yeah, I wouldn't jump to a ghost because that's not where my mind goes.
Not what I thought.
Oh, that's initially where Reddit went to.
Reddit was like,
Reddit was like a ghost killed her. I'm waiting to tell you who stayed in that hotel previously, and clearly they're haunting it. But my point wasn't that, like, my point was like, I thought that her family would have came out, or the police would have came out and been like, because like when she originally booked into the hotel, she was in a shared room with 3 people, and they made complaints saying that she was acting weird.
Yeah.
Her parents, like, she had a long history of having mental health issues and also being on medication for.
She was sectioned before.
Yes,
sectioned before. Yeah.
I just thought that maybe they had a duty of care to come out and be like, this person may be acting on.
Her sister did. Her sister went to the police and her sister told the police that she was on medication. She had bipolar 1 and she was known for not taking her medication. But that was told to the police.
No, that's what I mean. Like, the police, that narrative.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That didn't go out to the website.
I agree with you 100% because, again, I always do, like what you said, when I'm watching anything, I pretend I've never heard a thing about this before. I've never seen a thing about this before. So I try and watch it objectively, go, right, if I'm a person watching this for the first time, what am I thinking? And as I was watching that, and as, you know, like you said, they do the piece to camera there and they show the little bit of, you know, the police making the statement and Elisa Lam's parents and her sister are behind them. And that was the first thing I was like, they were aware that she suffered with her mental health and they were aware that she had had mental health episodes before. And like I said, as a result, had to be sectioned. Like, that is documented. That is fact. We know that. Yeah. And they knew that. Why wasn't that given? It seems like a lot of things done by the police and like the editing of the CCTV, you know, it is what created this haunted story.
The other side of that for me, one of the main issues I had with this podcast, or not podcast, with the documentary was, why do the general public think they have a right to know this? And that's where my issue came with a lot of this. Like, we're all in this industry of like true crime and podcasts and learning about people dying and death. So we're all part of this and we all
I was just about to go, Emma. Emma, that's us.
Yeah, like, no, 100%. This is what we do every week. Like, we take these stories.
I was like, I was doing the cut symbol to my neck there, but then I realized the camera was off. I was like, cut.
But like,
yeah, who does that? Jesus.
It is that thing where it's like, why do these people feel like they needed to have all of this information when the police had the information and they were the people that were trying to solve this case? So there's an arrogance here.
Fair point.
With a lot of this, where it's like these people are sitting in their homes on Reddit and this family have lost their daughter and their sister in the most horrific manner, and instead of going, right, well, we'll let the police deal with this and hopefully they'll figure something out, they're at home going thousands of miles away in England and Ireland, because there's English and Irish people on it, going, I'm going to figure this out. It's like, no, the police are going to figure it out, and her family are with the police and they've told the police what the police need to know, and maybe this information isn't being broadcast for a lot of reasons. So there is that thing where a lot of this web sleuthing comes from this massive amount of arrogance that people have. I thought it was really apparent in this documentary.
Do you know what? And like, that's a really fair point, I suppose. Like, the flip of it is that up until this point, we've seen the Michelle McNamara's, we've seen the Body Movins, the John Greens, and it's always been positive. It's where we've helped. It's where the armchair, and I say we, I mean, I'm not a fucking Jesus. I wouldn't have the discipline to sit down and do that. I mean, I barely have the discipline to sit down and review documentaries, but you know, I do have the utmost respect for anyone who has that level of dedication, because it is fucking tough doing that level of research. And when they get it right, isn't it brilliant? And they get it right. But this is, I suppose, the first really worldwide example of where they've got it so wrong, I suppose, isn't it?
It just fucked
up
really badly. And it's one of those things where it's too many cooks. Do you know what I mean?
And I think that's the thing. Like, I think, like, it's human nature to not want to be wrong.
course.
And it's really difficult to admit when you're wrong, right? It's like incredibly difficult. Like, and this affected so many people's lives. Like that Mexican gentleman whose life was just
destroyed.
Yeah, and again, like there's that, I already mentioned it, body moving and, you know, don't fuck with cats. There is that parallel because again, in Don't Fuck with Cats and Body Moving, they went and they kind of lynched this guy. They got the wrong guy. He ended up killing himself. Now, you know, they said in the documentary that this guy had suffered with his mental health, but I'm sure that didn't fucking help. They got the wrong guy. Like, we've seen it before. And now we're seeing it again where people just get on this bandwagon. And like you said, they can't be wrong. They can't accept that they could be wrong, that they might have got it wrong. And as we've seen in this documentary as well, where they're really wasting police time and really impacting a case, because they talk about how much time they wasted getting these thousands, hundreds of thousands of false tips, and they have to follow them up because they have to follow up any fucking tip.
Follow up everything.
So everything, they have to do paperwork for every tip they get in. And they, you know, I think it's an episode like 2 or 3, they're talking about how like the volume of time they waste following these tips because they all have to be followed up.
It is that thing where, listen, with regards to web sleuths, there are people out there that are genuinely doing good work and are helping. But with people like Michelle McNamara wasn't sitting on the internet going, maybe a ghost did it.
No,
Do you know what I mean?
I feel like people want to emulate her now, though. Do you know what I mean? She's something to. She's aspirational. Like she's, you know, everybody wants to be the next Michelle McNamara now. And then obviously with the documentary being released about her early last year as well, like that, to anybody who wasn't aware of her, it brought her to a new audience as well. But I feel like there is a lot of that because you see a lot of articles about the positive side of, you know, the armchair sleuth, and then that maybe this shows the negative as well, and goes into it in more depth, I suppose, as opposed like I said, Don't Fuck with Cats, they very, very briefly touch on it and then they move along with the narrative, you know, okay, we got it wrong for a minute, but then we did eventually get it right. So it's a nice juxtaposition. It's nice seeing the flip of this and how like this doesn't always go to plan. We don't always, I say we, but it's not me, but you know, we don't always get it right.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, as well. And
I don't know what you're saying. I've solved so many.
Sarah's
crimes.
always right.
I've solved so many crimes and saved so many people from all of my web sleuthing on Reddit.
I think, you know what, I will say this. I find it amazing when they can find stuff.
I always find, I mean, you say this all the time. Don't fuck with the people on Twitter.
Yeah,
because those motherfuckers.
Twitter will find the last time you had your at a bath.
The last time you took a dump,
they know
Twitter will be like, see this lady who shouted at this guy in the park?
They go, this you?
This you? And you're like, oh no, I've been found.
Like the sleuth, I do find the sleuth thing quite amazing, the way they can actually, when they do it correctly and they don't like start blaming random people for fucking murders who weren't even in the country at the time. I do find it amazing the way, and there are people that are to help. There are people that are genuinely trying to help.
there are people who are right 100% trying to help and have the right demeanor for it. What I mean by that are lateral, logical, process-driven individuals. Michelle McNamara was a journalist.
Yeah, and she could be like, this is wrong, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, and she would quite literally be like this, but she was also obsessive. Yeah. Right, and that's part of the reason why she was so good at what she did. But she also like she was working with the police. She wasn't being like, you're fucking wrong. This was a ghost.
Yeah.
I saw it, didn't I?
Yeah. Did you see the way her foot turned when she got out of that lift?
That's it. It's that thing where, like there's, it's sad, but it's also, it's like the entire time that I was watching it, a part of my brain was just going, oh my God, her poor family.
Well, I just felt she was exploited.
I just felt so bad for her family. I was like, oh man, to get a phone call to be like, we're after finding your daughter in a fucking water tank thing, and she's been there for how long was it? 19 days.
19 days. Yeah.
And then everyone on the internet is like, maybe it's a ghost, and you're like, that's their daughter, that's not a fucking ghost, man.
Yeah.
And it's not this random dude you found in Mexico and then destroyed his life, and we're no further to find what actually happened to this poor girl.
Oh, my heart went out to him, actually. My heart went out to him. And I have to say, that's probably the point at which this documentary lost me. It's amazing it didn't lose me sooner. But yeah, when Morbid we're talking about, so he's this Morbid, Mexican black metal musician. And he would have I suppose it's kind of death metal stuff, really, isn't it? Like He's wears masks, he distorts his voice, he talks about death, killing, all this kind of stuff, which obviously doesn't mean you're into it, it's just what you sing about. And yeah, they find this guy, they find out that he stayed there a year previously. They don't even bother looking into that to realize it was actually a year before the fact. But yeah, they see that he has stayed there. They see that he has released a song about killing a girl a couple of days after her death. And then upon web sleuthing some more, discover that one of his songs talks about killing a Chinese girl specifically and leaving her in a body of water. And they go, that's it. It's this guy. It's him. Yeah. And I think, it is probably the point at which I just said, here, And if I hadn't have been reviewing the documentary, I don't know whether I would have continued watching it.
I guess. I know.
Yeah, it did. My eye roll was audible at that point. I think
it was one of those things where I was watching it and I just kept going, what? Like it got progressively worse as it went on with regards to that poor chap. But don't get me wrong, he shouldn't really be writing songs about murdering Chinese girls and dumping them in bodies of water. We got to say that, he did say that it was his character. He was like, this is my character or whatever. And I was like, okay, fine, this is still weird dudes that will talk about killing women. But it doesn't mean he did kill. Well, he wasn't even in the fucking country.
Also,
I know.
There's millions of songs written a year about doing horrific, awful things to women. Yeah. And people aren't on the internet being like, oh, this dude definitely did it. Mm-hmm. Did you listen to that new Cannibal Corpse song? They're clearly murderers.
Do you think then this documentary kind of more accurately shows the dangers of amateur sleuths as opposed to, there are certain people out there with that skill set. Yeah. And they should be doing this, and they are helpful. And like we keep saying, the Michelle McNamara's of the world, there's not too many of them. They're few and far between. But there are people. It's the amateur ones. It's the wannabes. It's the ones who've decided that they're now experts in this field and they're going to solve the fucking crime. Like that's where the danger comes in.
I think it's the amateur bit, but I also think it's the disposition of the person, right? Because I'm like Emma will tell you, I can be super arrogant when it comes to proving something. Mm-hmm. So sometimes in particular, if I get an idea in my head with maybe work or particular, at a certain age I would have been like, no, I'm fucking right, and I know I'm right, and I'm just gonna keep going until I prove everybody wrong. And it's like that when you, and that can be said for anything that anybody does. If you're that type of person, that's always going to be dangerous. But if you're that type of person and you've got an interest in web sleuthing to try and solve serious crimes and help families and people who are missing their loved ones, who will cling onto anything. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's the thing. You're saying that I'm here to help, and I know I'm right, and these people are desperate for information about their family members or friends or loved ones. That's exploitative, and that's the danger of this whole documentary, I think, for me, where it's these people may think they're helping, but there's a lot of cases where they're not. They're not helping. I
also think it's a change in internet culture. Yeah. Because I think 20 years ago, when you were on the internet, it was almost like a private thing. It was like, I don't really want anybody to know that I'm doing this. I don't really want anybody to know that I'm on chat rooms or on these weird websites talking about murder. Yep. And that's changed now, where it's become, how many internet points can I get? And how many likes can I get? How many retweets can I get? How many people can I get invested in this thing that I'm doing? So you see people online making up the most outrageous shit to get attention. Yeah, and absolutely. Even if it's not true, the attention is there, and it's addictive. Stay there. You could have someone release something out. It's addictive. You could have someone release something, be like, this is all factually incorrect. And we've seen it with QAnon and not true. But because the original post got 30,000 likes and 1 million people commenting on it, no one is going to look at that factually incorrect. So I think you can see it in this, I think, the change in internet culture and how it's become so important to be right on the internet.
Yeah. I'm talking about my private posts on this.
I'm talking about Sarah's life right now. This is an intervention.
This is an intervention. No, you're absolutely right. People it just becomes this fact on the internet.
It's like, I said this and I'm right. Log off. I have to take no culpability for what I said.
And the flip of that is, I've become that irritating cunt that everything that's shared, I do a fact check on it, and then I'm like, actually, I'm the comment underneath going, actually, I think you'll find that's not true. Yeah, I become that person, so I'm like, no, I'm just, I doubt everything.
And I would do it. People hate you for it. Yeah, they're like, fuck off. But it's like Sarah said, it's that thing of a person's disposition where they're like, I want to be right, even if this is wrong. I want to be right. So you're right about that. That was definitely the documentary with those people as well.
Yeah. I think that the documentary as well, like, I mean, on the positive side, they did a good job of covering all of the narrative surrounding her story, because it's very hard to tell that story without including, obviously, the web sleuths, because they played such a major part in it. And I think they did a good job of, dispelling the rumors eventually. Dispelling the myth eventually. But it's literally in the last 15, 20 minutes, really, isn't it? That they finally address everything and go, because again, watching it objectively, right? All along, I was watching it and going, yeah, okay. I still have my thoughts about it. But if I'm a person who has never heard of this case, watching this documentary for the first time, I'm still thinking, okay, yeah, but the door of the tank was closed.
Maybe.
The door of the tank was closed. So how are they going to explain that? You're waiting for that explanation.
You know what I thought was kind of weird as well?
Go for it.
They called the last episode The Hard Truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I didn't know if it was tongue in cheek, or for them to be like, the hard truth for these people was that it was not a ghost and she was not murdered. The hard truth for them was this poor girl had a manic episode and accidentally or otherwise committed suicide. That was the hard truth for them. I thought that was so bizarre. I was like, in some fucked up, weird, crazy way, I would prefer her not to have been murdered.
Oh, I'd agree with you.
You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah.
It was almost like there was that one guy whose name I can't remember, but he was the same guy who got his friend to go and touch her gravestone.
John Sabani.
That guy. I was
John
like,
Sabani.
You need to go to therapy.
Yeah.
But like he was like, oh, it was almost like we kind of wanted her to have been murdered. I was like, dude, go to therapy. Like, because that is that thing where it's like, they were all like, she didn't commit suicide, it's all these 10,000 other things that we think happened, and then when it didn't, they were disappointed. So I was like, what is happening here? It's so bizarre.
I think this documentary for John Sabani to look back on, I think it's going to be a huge eye-opener for him.
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's going to be huge. And I mean, he got I mean, my heart goes out to him because he got so much shit online after this.
Did
like,
he?
yeah, he did. He really got, because I mean, if we're being really honest about it, he's just, the way he is the way he is, but also through the power of editing, they can make him come across a certain way. And they could have made him look worse. They could have made him look better. Yeah, definitely. And I my heart did go out to him, because I mean, he's obviously a guy. I don't think there's any badness in him. This is the thing.
Not at all. That's the thing.
Seems
it's not
like
badness.
He seems like just a pure empath, really, doesn't he? He was like, he felt connected to her. Yeah.
Wanted to learn. He thought she was an amazing writer, and wanted to learn more about her and stuff. And
yeah,
like, that's great, man. Like, I understand that, but at the end of the day, this poor girl died, and that's, regardless of how you feel about her.
It's that projection though onto her of like, she gets me. Like, projecting. She never met you, dude. She doesn't, you don't know that she gets you. You're supposing that she gets you, and that she's talking to you, and that you have a shared commonality, and you don't fucking know that, like, but it's really quite sad, actually. And like I said, I really do feel like bad for the guy, and I feel like that looking back on it.
He got shit on the internet.
He did. Yeah, he got trolled to fuck. Yeah.
Don't make any jokes.
I know, but I'm being good.
But it is that thing, the way they say about parasocial relationships, where people become obsessed with famous people or figures
like
in
me
the
with
media.
Adam Driver.
Yeah. So and they can't
more on that later.
They can't differentiate. They can't differentiate between actual friendships and love and relationships, and like this idea of what they have as a person. And I felt a lot of people in the documentary were doing that.
Yeah.
Like, we really connected with her because she was lonely. I'm like, yeah, okay, but that doesn't mean you can go online and blame a man in a band for murdering her.
Yeah.
But also, that's 90% of the population of the world. That's, and she'd mental health issues. That's also 90% of the population of the world. And she was a deep thinker. That's also 90%. That could be fucking anyone. Like, again, I'm not
I kind of
belittling her writing ability or her ability to connect to people. But
no, and I get that. Like, we get that. But I felt like all these people just needed to be friends with each other.
Yeah, they should have been friends.
If they were a group. Yeah, if they were just mates with each other, then they'd stop doing this shit.
Yeah. You could see a lot of loneliness in them,
so much loneliness, yeah.
I really
that
do.
they had no one in their lives that they connected with, and so we're on the internet searching for things they connected with. And this...
Finding the right person for the job isn't easy. Just ask someone who hired their personal trainer as a caterer.
All
right, folks, let's keep this line moving. You there with the tongs. Picking up one Duchess potato at a time will not cut it at my catering table. Drop and give me 50.
But if you've got an insurance question, you can always count on your local Geico agent. They can bundle your policies, which could save you hundreds.
Okay, this is what we call the wild mushroom and asparagus dip, and press. Come on, let's get those plates above your heads.
For expert help with all your insurance needs, visit geico.com/local today.
You coming to bed, hon?
Yep, honey, I'll be right there. Just gotta turn out the light. Ow! 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 Ah! Gah!
Some things never change. Like your kids always leaving tiny toys on the floor for you to step on. And Geico saving folks lots of money on their car insurance.
Sweetie, I think I left the downstairs light on.
Please don't make me go.
15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Dead girl
became the like
because probably like they're not connecting with anybody in real life.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, this person where I can literally push on what I want to feel about it.
Yeah.
And write my own narrative about it and be really connected to her. And then also I might be able to help find out what happened to her.
And then the disappointment when she wasn't murdered.
Yeah, and then the disappointment because it's like, oh no, she
they
wasn't
built
murdered.
They built
she
up
built
the
it up.
story,
Yeah.
so they turned her into like a victim.
Yeah.
And she wasn't a victim.
No.
Elisa Lam was not a victim. She was mentally unwell and very sick, but she wasn't a victim.
No.
And they almost victimized her and infantilized her and made her this like manic pixie girl in their heads where she was like, oh, she's writing on Tumblr. And I was like, she was a grown woman. She was really smart. She went to LA by herself. Like she did all these amazing things, but unfortunately she wasn't taking her medication properly.
Yeah.
And that's what happened.
She's bipolar
1,
Bipolar 1, yeah.
So.
And then her toxicology results obviously showed that, and the volume of tablets that she still had, versus when the script was taken out, that kind of all told the story of how little of her meds she was actually taking. And yeah. I mean, look, go ahead.
There was a part in it that actually really pissed me off.
Go for it.
I can't remember which guy said it, but one of them said, how Elisa, is it Elisa or Elisa? Elisa, sorry. How
Elisa Lam.
Elisa acted. He was like, I've never heard of anyone during a manic episode with bipolar 1 acting like that. And I was like, that is
really
utter horseshit. I was like, that is bullshit. That is a blatant lie. That is dangerous to tell.
But that's what you were also saying earlier, is that it's this, you're so certain you're right that that's, you're going to contradict everything, even, common knowledge. Like that's,
Yeah, even like people doing, who are doing autopsies, like the people that were performing the autopsies, you had people sitting on their laptops at home going, no, I don't agree with that. Sorry, do you have a degree? No.
Yeah, absolutely.
So and you don't, and the other side of it is right. Okay. We all know the police in America. So in general, I get the distrust, and I get where they were like, we don't know if we can trust the LAPD. We don't know if they're trying to cover this up. We don't know, if there's some sort of conspiracy going on. And then they were like, we don't know if we trust the hotel. They could have a conspiracy going on. I'm like, the Cecil Hotel has about $10.
Oh yeah, when
in
they
its
were like
bank account.
They kept going on. The CCTV was clearly like, you couldn't make out that timestamp. That's the same videotape they've had since 1997.
Over that one videotape. They didn't have any fucking money.
Yeah.
It's like, where in the name of God would they get all this money to create a massive conspiracy?
Yeah.
Why would they also tank their own business?
There you go. So it is that thing. You can pick and choose what you want to make your story fit.
That's a nice little segue to my next point as well, is that, we can't really do a documentary review of this documentary and not talk about, like we said, the biggest character in it, which is the hotel itself.
Yeah.
And the history of the hotel. And as I said from the get-go, I really do feel the missed a trick here, that maybe this particular documentary should not have been about Elisa Lam, that they should have done something that was more, fitting and more that covered her story and honored her story. And then maybe this should have been about this crazy character that is the Cecil Hotel. Yeah, exactly. Because it does have a very colorful history. And that's a very interesting story in and of itself.
Yeah.
But what's not is when it's included in this jumpy narrative where you're like, what are we talking? Now we're hopping to this and we're hopping to that. And we're like, for fuck's sake, just stick pick a narrative and
pick something.
Yeah. So like the Cecil Hotel itself does have a fascinating backstory. There's been 16 deaths since it first opened. 16 deaths in the Cecil Hotel. And like you said, look, I mean, it's not maybe something that should be very surprising to people. It is in an area known as Skid Row. So obviously it's going to attract a lot of down and outs. And I suppose it's a place then that it's easy to escape and disappear into. But you briefly touched on it earlier. I'm going to get you to go back to it. We were talking about, obviously, Richard Ramirez stayed there. Yeah. So they say. I don't know what. Is there evidence of that? I mean, I don't know. Is it just another urban myth?
Anything, couldn't you? And people would be
like, The Black Dahlia is another one.
The Black Dahlia.
Say, again, is there evidence of that? Apparently, she was seen drinking at the bar 6 days before her murder. Again, that's just briefly said in the documentary. One of the more interesting stories that they touch on, and you mentioned there earlier, was about the Austrian guy.
Yeah.
Go for it. Tell us about it.
So weirdly enough, Sarah and I went to Vienna 2 years ago, last year, 2 years ago.
3 years ago now.
For this fucking pandemic. We went to Austria, and there's a museum in Austria called the Museum of Death, the Death Museum.
Oh yeah.
And it's fucking, if you ever get a chance to go, please do, because it's the most bizarre fucking thing. It is just run by this old man, and it's so strange. But we went downstairs, and downstairs at the bottom, there's this display, and that guy, that serial killer,
it's Jack. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but it's Jack Unterweger. I don't know.
That guy. Like that. He murdered women in Austria as well, and they had the clothes of the girls that he murdered in the museum.
Yeah, so he murdered a number of women with their bra.
Yeah, he was doing that knot thing.
Yeah, and it was so eerie. So this hotel is so eerie, and anyway, but this is kind of the for me, and anyway, I think me and you kind of spoke about the fact that we were really uncomfortable.
We were immediately when we saw that, we were like, where the fuck did he get this stuff?
Jesus.
And it still had some of her hair.
Her hair was wrapped in the bra.
What?
Like, it was insane. And I kept going to you, that's not real though. And I was
that's
like, not real. I kept saying that.
I kept going to her, we need to leave
here. But yeah, that guy. So then when he popped up in that documentary, I was like, no fucking way.
How does somebody even get their hands up like that?
Oh, this hotel had shit that we were like, it was not this hotel, that museum.
It was like crazy,
and it was the weirdest hotel. It was like, honestly, I honestly thought this was like a hostel situation. We're
not getting out of here. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm gonna just go back. No, because I was just kind of stunned. I wish you could see my face right now. I'm just kind of the jaw. So this was the bra that she was strangled
with. He had her bra. He had her.
That's evidence.
Yeah, he had her shoes. He had something else as well. I think it was like a leather skirt he had, because
I had her handbag.
He had her handbag.
And then all around it, around the glass box, he had like pictures
and notes that he had written,
and notes and newspaper articles and pictures.
What did the notes say?
Because that guy was like quite they were all in German.
In German, whatever it was. We didn't understand what they were saying, but he had they had pictures from where this guy worked in his job. He had like Polaroids from the guy with his co-workers. And like the entire time I was like, this is definitely not real. And then it was like, this is 100% real.
Yeah.
And then you know the way he used to use the knots to knock them out and then keep bringing them back. So the bra was knotted, and her hair and tights.
Oh my God.
Was still in the bra. And I was like, what the fuck? So then everybody popped up on if you ever get it, it's insane. And like when you walk in, it's just this old man standing at a desk
in a house.
It's a fucking house. And then they turned it into a museum, and you go in, and he has like original torture devices and stuff like it's so fucking crazy.
And somebody locked in his basement by the fucking sounds of things. Jesus Christ.
I dragged Sarah to this, and then I felt so bad because I was like, this is so messed up. I didn't know it was going to be this messed up. Like I genuinely didn't.
And they don't really like, most of the exhibits are all in German. They're all in German, and so there was like really no, and even when we got there, you could tell the guy was just confused. He was like, why are you here? And it's built in this house is built in like the 1920s.
It's freezing, it's so cold,
and it's got a courtyard in the middle, and the house is beautiful, but the whole thing is like really eerie because there's all these like narrow walkways to the place, and it's really mazy as well. So when we were walking down, I was like, I'm gonna have to save this bitch.
And we were the only two people there. It was just me and Sarah Jane.
Just me and Emma.
Did you not see that episode of Black Mirror? Because literally, oh my God.
But like when we got there, I was like super excited. We were like, yeah, let's do this.
I probably would have pissed myself. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually in Black Mirror. It's begun.
The second I walked in, I was like, this was a bad
to
idea.
be
This is a bad idea.
To be completely fair, every place we went to in Vienna was like that.
It was
Every
very
place,
cold,
like
very
honestly
cold,
yeah.
very like, oh, you could potentially die here.
That apartment complex we stayed in as well.
It was so
we
weird.
stayed in this like apartment complex, like an Airbnb, was it?
Yeah.
And it was built in pre-World War II.
Yeah.
The building that we stayed in, and was just like the whole place was like solid slabbed marble
and concrete.
Yeah. And it was built to like take being bombed.
Yeah.
And when we were at
and for no one to hear you screaming by the sound of it as well.
And when we got it, just tell you how bad it was. The first night, because we had like a little kitchen we walked into our kitchen, and then through the kitchen you walked into our bedrooms. Remember we put stuff up against
put stuff against the door.
Yeah, we
were
put
like
stuff up against the kittion.
Yeah, this is how we die.
Yeah,
I like the way I talk shit about those people that went to the Cecil Hotel and stayed there for 5 days. And now immediately I'm like, do you remember that shithole we stayed in?
What's wrong with these people?
Yeah, but you know what as well? We went in the height of winter. So it was so dark and it was so cold. So it was very eerie. And then when we arrived in that museum, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ, we're going to do this.
And just for clarity as well, then great, because I'm hoping know more about this. Like, obviously in the documentary he's briefly mentioned because he came over, he was pretending to be a journalist undercover, doing this story on the prostitutes of Skid Row, and he even did like a fucking, went along with the cops and got information from them, and then suddenly women started disappearing again, and here it as he said, he went from Austria where the killings stopped after he left, and then the killings promptly, take up in Skid Row within there as well. So like, okay, in the documentary, it says he's pretending to be a journalist, but then it also says he was a journalist. So was he actually a journalist? And then this facilitated his killing. Okay.
The photos that we could see of him, he worked, but he didn't write articles. If I remember correctly, he did like those ads in the back of papers.
Yeah, I think he was
it was like ads or something, or he was like doing like, like notifications about people's like deaths and weddings and those kind of things. And the photo piece in particular, that's like in Austria, that's what he was doing, is he was meeting these women and saying he was a photographer, and was taking their photos and then unfortunately like murdering them. Jeez. But he was I have to go back and look at this. He was arrested in Vienna and got off.
He did. He was arrested and got off and became like a famous figure. No, that was when he went back. He went back to Vienna. That's what it was. So when he went back to Vienna, he became like famous in Vienna, not like infamous, but like famous.
Yeah.
He wrote books and people wanted to interview him, and like women were paying attention to him. He became like a famous figure in Vienna.
So this is after he served his time in America and got back home,
he went back to Vienna, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my God, he's so famous and amazing. And oh my God.
All is forgiven.
Yeah, insane. But it's like there's a Japanese serial killer. I don't know if
oh my God.
He killed that woman and ate her. And then and the Japanese were like, we love you. You're great. Like it's mental. And it happened to him, and it happened to the Austrian serial killer as well.
It would be like Larry Murphy over here. Like, hey, come on to the Late Late Show.
And we're like, hey, Larry, write a book. Like nuts. But yeah, when he popped up in the documentary, I was like, oh shit, this is crazy. Because I'd known, obviously, because when we went to the Museum of Death, afterwards we both Googled him and we were like, holy fuck, he went to America and killed women in America. But obviously I didn't realize it was linked to the Cecil Hotel in any way whatsoever. And then he popped up in that, and I was like, of course he fucking stayed there, because it was easy pickings.
Yeah,
these women are vulnerable, nobody cares about them. Let's be fucking honest, the police certainly don't care about them. So he could go over there and be like, where will I go to get women people don't care about, that they'll be forgotten about, and that it's easy to pick them up?
Yeah, I think the long and the short of it though as well, and maybe you'll agree and maybe you won't, is that, they say from the get-go that it is one of the only hotels in downtown. It's in a shit area, it's in an underprivileged area, it's in an area of high crime, it's in an area of high murder. Like, I think they give the figures on how many people die on Skid Row. Is it 1,000?
Crazy.
I feel like it's 1,000 die a year on Skid Row, like something crazy anyway.
And mainly women as well. Like,
exactly. So as interesting a history as the Cecil has, you can't say that oh my God, isn't it mad that there's been 16 deaths at this hotel? Because it's in a shit part and in an underprivileged part. It's in a part that's just rampant with drugs and prostitution and crime. So no is the answer. It's not really. It's going to attract a bad lot, isn't it?
It's a victim of its geography. That's what it is. The hotel is completely a victim of its geography.
I would still love to see a separate documentary about it, though. Still would love a more in-depth history.
It is fucking fascinating. It is fascinating. Like we're all into this for a reason. Do you know what I mean? If we can't sit here and pretend to be like, oh no, it's not. It is fucking fascinating. A hotel like that it's used a lot for people to do really bad shit. So it's got that reputation amongst criminals as well to be like, just go to the Cecil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
absolutely. Another thing that grew legs online among all of the conspiracy theories were the synchronicities in this story. Like there was a lot of very, 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 convenient, I would say, things that happened in relation to the story that if I suppose you're into a conspiracy theory, this would solidify it, wouldn't it? So look, talk us through some of the synchronicities there that they discuss in the documentary. And like there's more. There's fucking Jesus. Oh my God. I fell down we were talking about Reddit earlier, fell down a rabbit hole and there was just pages upon pages. But I mean, go through the main ones.
So there was that movie Dark Water. Where the girl drowns in the water tank.
I've never seen it, lads. Have you?
I saw the original.
I've never seen that.
But I haven't seen the American remake. There was that. Then there was the what they call it, the Elisa Lam vaccination, the TB vaccination. There was that one. Which, okay, I'll be honest.
That fucked me up. That is. Really? You have to give it to him.
The vaccination is spelled exactly like her name, and there was a TB outbreak when she was there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying it was, but in terms of like a coincidence, that's a massive coincidence.
So it's the test for TB is called the Lam Elisa test, and it's spelt exactly as her name. So LAM ELISA. It's exactly spelled. It's just inverted.
Like I wasn't like, because people were like, she's a covert operative sent by the government to give everybody in Skid Row TB to rid them of the homeless population so they can build and gentrify. And I was like, lads, now. But it is, no, that's ridiculous.
It is a synchronicity.
No, that is ridiculous.
The definition of a synchronicity.
Yeah, like it is synchronicity. I have to just, like, that did fuck me up a bit. I was like, that's so weird. What are more? I can't remember. Tell me more.
So the other one was then with the tuberculosis program that is ran, the government tuberculosis program is ran in the university that Elisa attended.
That she went to,
British Columbia, the University of British Columbia, and then as well the one about the bookstore. Do you remember this? This I was like, that is fucking bizarre. So the bookstore one is the zip code, when you go onto Google Maps and you get the zip code of the bookstore and then you run a search on it, it brings up a pin in the cemetery that Elisa is buried in.
Yeah. There is, but then again, like as we were saying, there's a lot of synchronicity and there's a lot of like coincidences. But as I said, you know that thing where it is you can fit your story in any way you possibly can.
But if you are somebody of a persuasion or somebody that is easily like, and I'm not, but I can totally see that if you're someone,
people will be like, and listen, conspiracy theories can be fun, not the ones involving, awful things in the government and like lizard people. That shit's not fun. But like conspiracy theories can be fun when you're trying to kind of figure stuff out. But I do think this documentary arrived at like a perfect time in the sense that you see the damage conspiracy theories can do. And I think that he was kind of trying to show that as well in the documentary, to be like, someone will take an idea and then 90,000 people run with it.
Yeah.
So like, but in saying you're right, if you were somebody that was super into that and you saw that the TB vaccine was named as had her fucking name, and there was a TB outbreak in Skid Row and she was there, if you were one of these people that I'd be like, oh my God, yes, she's the government.
There was an outbreak 2 days after her disappearance.
After his appearance was a massive outbreak, and that's what they were like, because even that, there was a lovely guy actually in the documentary, probably my favorite one, and his name I cannot remember now, but he was talking mainly about Skid Row and the things that happen in Skid Row.
He was the Skid Row historian, Dr.
Yes, he was so interesting.
Yeah, he was very interesting to listen to.
I'd like to see a documentary about Skid Row and the Cecil Hotel with that guy, because listening to him everything he was saying made sense, and he was one of the only people on the documentary making a lot of sense, and kind of bringing the idea of what happened to Elisa and what actually goes on in Skid Row together.
Yeah,
you know, and he said he wasn't shocked by any of this because he's seen the most heinous shit happen. So, but yeah, like he was kind of like the touchstone for the whole thing. I kind of kept going back to him when I was watching it.
Yeah.
Because he was actually talking sense, and there was at no point where he was buying into any of the conspiracy bullshit at all.
No.
Whatsoever. And he kept setting it straight when you know, he'd be like, no, that's because of this, that's because of this, that's because of this. But yeah, if you were a conspiracy nut, this would have been the best thing ever.
Yeah, and you could be forgiven for it as well, is what I'm saying. Like, I'm not a conspiracy theory nut. No, I do find them interesting as long as they're not damaging or harmful to anyone.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I mean, again, watching this objectively, I said, right, I don't think you would have to be very easily led to see those things and kind of go, there's a connection, you know. I think a lot of people would, and particularly, like I said, the name was the main one. And for me personally as well, the pin drop then with the zip code, I was like, that's a little bit fucked up. Why?
Because
but you are not an asshole. You just have this tendency to be like, if things are not of like a worldly idea that makes complete sense, you don't want to hear it.
Yeah,
I've always been like that.
I have to my mom hates having like debates with me or like talking to me about things because it's like I have to be the subject expert in it. So see that conspiracy theory thing, especially about her name with the TB. That's an acronym.
That is, but that's why but everybody knew it was an acronym. And that wasn't the point. They were like, it's an acronym, but it's and everybody knew because any TB, any inoculations or vaccinations or anything should have an acronym. But they were like, their thing was like, how convenient that the acronym is her entire name. Like, so
letter perfect.
Right.
Yeah, I know. I understand, right?
Why
I get.
think that.
And then like the TB outbreak thing, I had to, like, statistically, I went back to see how often there's a TB outbreak in Skid Row. How often does it happen? Because like you have a population of people that are not like do not get vaccinated because they don't have access to medical to doctors. And then in terms of like,
well, you're telling this to people who are
they're searching.
They don't want it. They don't want to know statistics. They don't want to know facts. They don't want to know when the last outbreak was.
I know.
They hear Elisa Lam.
And even then, when they went back around the number of deaths that have happened in the hotel, I was like, if we divide that by the amount of time how long the hotel's been opened up, it's only an average of 5 per year, which actually isn't that high. 5
deaths a year in a hotel, and not like someone died in their sleep.
Yeah.
Someone jumped out a window. Someone was stabbed. Someone was tortured. Someone was like. There's actually I keep talking about this. There's a documentary series on YouTube and it's called Soft White Underbelly.
Yeah, that thing sounds amazing.
And
making a mental note, go for it.
Yeah, he interviews a lot of people from Skid Row. And there was this one lady that they interviewed and she had fought off 3 serial killers.
Yeah.
My God.
That story is insane.
Yeah. That is insane.
Insane. But she was talking about these hotels that they would bring them to. And I was like, oh man, the Cecil Hotel is what that is.
No, that is,
for.
And that's actually how we started to talk about this.
Yeah.
And that's she had like she was in a hotel with a pickaxe stuck in her head, and no one helped her. No one asked her if she was okay.
And even the manager, remember they were talking to the manager of the hotel, and she said that Elisa came downstairs and made a scene downstairs, and she was like, I'm crazy, but so is LA. And she said nobody batted an eyelid.
Yeah.
And she was like, that's the Cecil, that's LA.
But do you remember then back in, I think it was the first or second episode, there was again that LAPD detective, and he was like, I saw a guy like walking around with a live pigeon and then he just bit his head off. Like that's the shit you see on Skid Row every day. Like, and again, nobody bats an eyelid, you know.
There's a fella that wanders around Ballyfermot. That wanders around Ballyfermot with 2 pigeons, not 2 pigeons, 2 parrots.
They're on his shoulder.
And you just see in the park walking his dog on a sunny day. And like everyone not the Ballyfermot. It's like
you just see him watching the documentary and he hears that bit. He hears that bit and looks up and goes, Papa?
Yeah. So no, there is that thing of like when you become like complacent in what's going on around you, then it just becomes like normal.
Normality,
and like these things happen.
But could you imagine, right? Like, you know, these conspiracy theories. Could you imagine trying to sit down with these people and explain what you
No, I couldn't.
Do you know what I mean?
It's like
because they're like, no.
Yeah,
and even, like,
absolutely. And you know, touching on that as well, I thought it was very admirable then of them at the end of it to go, do you know what? We got it wrong.
Yeah.
And it took us so long to let go of that belief. We were so invested in the belief that something was, you know, she'd been killed, murdered, that it was just, we were so invested in it. It took so long, but we eventually recognized that, you know, the best way to honor her memory is to accept the truth that she had a bipolar episode, that she wasn't taking her meds correctly. And and as well, they touched on this as well, that they said that when she had a bipolar episode before, it was very similar to what was in the video, that she thought someone was chasing her, that she thought the only way she could get away was to hide, to run, and to kill herself from this being. And it is, and that's what it ends up being. It just ends up being this really, really sad story. And I'm like, I wish it either focused on that, or wish it either focused on the hotel. But I did like the conclusion. I just didn't like how they came to it. I didn't like all the shit in between.
That guy, the guy, I'm so bad with names, Gemma, I'm sorry. He was the guy that went to when the parents sued the hotel. He went to the hearing.
Oh, Landon, John Landon. Yeah.
Like, he was the one that was so into the conspiracy side of things.
Yeah. And he really speaks about his shame in the final episode.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a scene where he says, like, I look back at those tapes and I'm just so invested in it.
And at the end, he was like, this girl was mentally unwell and, you know, she died. So it could have been a thing as well for a lot of these people where this might have been the last one of these cases that they became super invested in, because they saw, you know, the outcome and how you can really and truly believe one thing, and then at the end it's not what they thought it was. But yeah, him especially, I thought you could see that he was like, holy fuck, what was I doing?
And like, you know? I mean, I do sympathize with them, because like we are in this industry as well. Maybe we're not web sleuths, we're true crime podcasters, but there's a care of duty. And you know, you're having the crack and you're making the jokes and all that, but these are real fucking people, and this is a real story, and their family are still alive, and they deserve respect in life and in death. And I liked the conclusion it came to. Like, it was the middle bit I wasn't so hot on. I liked the start of the documentary. I liked the end. It was the middle bit. It just kind of lost the run of itself. It really did. Yeah.
But as well, you know, in some senses, it could have been actually a very well-made documentary if they changed a lot of it about mental health.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, absolutely. You know, but you know, I not that there wasn't a story around mental health, because obviously it's a mental health episode. Yeah, but she had access to mental health medication. She had access to doctors. She was like really, because she's from Canada, where their healthcare system is
so good.
So like there could have been a documentary of like the juxtaposition of like, you know, the mental health care she received versus like what the people on Skid Row receive.
Exactly.
Because and a number of people who live in there are there because they have mental health issues and don't have access to healthcare. But like there isn't a story there because she had access to it. But she had her medication.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, with a lot of people, especially with bipolar, they stop taking their medication because they don't feel like they're
themselves
actually living.
Yeah.
And then as well, you know, if they're diagnosed as a teenager or even as a child, they can be put on meds. But I mean, once someone hits 18, you cannot force them to take their meds. That's the sad reality of it. And we've seen cases of that over and over and over again, where unfortunately, you know, we've seen it with police, you know, where they've ended up having to gun them down because they've had these episodes or whatever. It's absolutely tragic. And this is the thing, it brings up this whole thing, is that you can diagnose someone, you can medicate them, you can do everything right, but you can't You can't force them.
At the end of the day, that's still a person. That's still a person with cognitive thoughts and who wants to live a life and be. And like even when with her Tumblr posts and everything, you could see that she just wanted to experience things.
Yeah.
To go places and do things and go to gigs and hang out with people and make friends. And she found that all very difficult. So I think as well, that's probably one of the reasons that a lot of people latched onto her. Like Sarah was saying earlier, there were kind of people that couldn't find a connection really. And then she became that connection because a lot of us suffer with our mental health. A lot of us are on medication. A lot of us don't want to be on medication. We have to be because we don't have a choice because we can't function as normal people. Yeah. And then that poor girl, when she stopped taking her medication, this fucking happened to her. So, oh man, it's just horrible. It's so sad.
No, you hit the nail on the head, I think, from the get-go. The quote, I can't remember her name either, but from that, she's one of the talking heads in the documentary, and she says that, the reality is so much sadder than anything they could have. Yeah, that anything they could have made up. I'm going to go briefly to the ratings online. IMDb, this one got 5.9 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes, 52%. Do you think that's a fair mark?
Yes, I really do. But you know something, on second watching it, I got a lot more out of it on my second watch than I did on my first watch. But I also think maybe I was doing that because I was really researching it to talk to you. So I think maybe I was trying to find things in it where I was like, we can talk about this and we can talk about that. But that doesn't make it a good documentary.
No. I think though, you're right though as well. I think sometimes if you watch something for entertainment value, we've become really spoiled, haven't we? We've just got access to so much. If something doesn't grab you straight away, no, it's shit, it's gone. Our attention spans are so short now. And it's funny even, you reminded me now something that I was like, oh, we'll say that, but that later, you touched on it, that it felt like it could have been done in an hour and a half. Like, Go back to the start of Netflix. Go back to the start of the true crime documentary renaissance. Making a Murderer season 1 is 13 fucking episodes. Like that's what the true crime documentary series used to be. And now we feel like 4 episodes is too much. But I agree with you in this regard, definitely. And I don't necessarily think it's an attention span thing. I do think it's a messy narrative thing. It's just, it's very jarring. We don't ever get fully immersed in the narrative because the minute you're getting invested in one storyline, it jumps to the next and it jumps to the next and jumps to the next. And like, that is the opposite of what a documentary should be. It should be fully immersive. You should be completely invested in the story. Yeah.
There's a documentary, remember we watched it, the one about something beach? I don't remember the name of it.
I was call it Myrtle Beach, but that's not what it's called.
I can't remember. There's a documentary.
I'll Google it.
Sarah's going to Google it. It's a documentary made by a guy whose mother was murdered.
Oh my God. Yes. I know there's a podcast about this as well.
I was fucking gripped. Yeah. I was gripped. I sat and I watched the entire thing in one night. And that, when you watch that and then you compare it,
Middle Beach,
you compare it to this documentary, I feel like Cecil Hotel documentary was all style and no substance.
It was.
And we watched this other one, and it's just this dude shooting it with his mates on a camera.
But you know what that one reminded me of? What? Dear Zachary.
Dear Zachary.
Have you seen Dear Zachary, Gemma?
Oh, I have. I sure have.
Jesus, like, those kind of documentaries where you watch them, and I think what's happening with Netflix, where you mentioned Ron Howard there, there is so much money being pumped
into a cash grab.
There is so much money being pumped into documentaries at the moment that it's gotten to the point now where they're trying to, it's almost like a production line. We're trying to get them.
But it is. I know you're dead right. A production line is exactly, because I mean, bearing in mind, if we go back to when this was released within the timeline, this was within 7 days of Night Stalker. Like, they can't get them out quick enough. They're literally they're not even giving you a week. They're not even giving you 7 days. Great for me, but
about the Mormons. Have you started watching that?
Yeah, Murder Among Mormons. Yeah, Murder Among Mormons. Brilliant. Yeah.
And I didn't know that until I Googled it today, and then I was like, yes, he did, because it's literally shot exactly the same. Like, the same guy that did the Cecil Hotel one, he's done the
oh, really?
So when you watch it, you're like, that makes sense that this is exactly the same. But yeah, it is that thing where it's like saturated. The market is becoming saturated at this point.
Yeah, says the two girls with a murder.
Well, we have a murder podcast, but it's saturated in the sense that, like, I'm not a big fan of Marvel movies. I'm not into them. It's not my thing.
Me either.
People are fucking knock yourself out. It's great. But have you ever sat down and thought about it, like the fact that it is literally the same movie,
The same film over and over again.
times,
Yeah.
and people are eating it up because it's what is now in the public. It's what's
Yeah.
important. It's what's popular. And true crime documentaries are absolutely becoming that now. 100%.
Yeah.
You can see
Yeah.
they're making so much money off it. But the difference between Marvel and true crime documentaries is Marvel is not real.
Yeah.
These people are real people. They have real lives. They have families. They're not for you to sit there and be like, you know, listen, it's entertainment at the end of the day. It's fucking entertainment. You can't say what we do is for entertainment purposes as well. But there is that idea that if it becomes so popular and so ingrained that the actual stories are forgotten.
Well, I also think, like, if you're going to do any of these things, right, and one of the most important things for me and Emma, because our podcast is our podcast, and we talk about true crime, and we talk about true crime in Ireland.
Yeah.
But we're really careful around when we're telling the story of a victim.
Yeah.
And this didn't, like, as I said, the last time we spoke, Gemma, I was like, I just found this really exploitative.
Yeah.
Like, I just found that they were like, oh, this
and you're not
happened to
the
her.
only one. You're not the only one. I mean, if you go to the biggest reviewers online, you go to The Guardian, you go to, you know, they've all said the same thing. They found it really exploitative as well. So you're not alone in your thoughts at all. Like,
yeah. And like, I do think, right, so there's a certain balance here that I thought maybe he was trying to achieve by being like, oh, those standard true crime documentaries that like the Murder on Middle Beach, which is made on like a handheld and like $100 budget, and it's like but that's so true to the story. Like the story of like walking through that woman's house and being in her garden and being like, it happened here, and like this isn't like, I have to light this scene so precisely, and now I'm going to get some really good editing and some music, and then also what we're going to do is we're going to put a shot of like an Asian girl who kind of looks like Elisa, and then read out her Tumblr updates, and then also show footage of like a bus arriving in the bus terminus in California.
It's funny actually when you say that. It reminds me of, do you remember when like in the early noughties there was this spate of like the Japanese horrors being remade for the American market, and they all fucking banned because they were just full of CGI, whereas the Japanese ones were just there was too much bells and whistles, whereas if they had left the bare bones of the freaky story and let it be what it was, it was like, far more scary.
I don't want to say murder documentaries should be subtle, because there's nothing subtle about murder.
No.
But there is a line that you cross where it's like, I'm telling this story because I think this story needs to be told, and I want money. And I could smell it off this documentary.
Yeah.
I could smell that off it. And it's sad because, as you said, her story should be told, and it should be told properly.
But they hadn't. Like, it was clear and apparent that they had more money than they knew what to do with it, because that's why they're getting fucking people who stayed in a hotel for 5 days.
There was you're absolutely right. There's so many talking heads in this doc. I don't think I've ever seen as many contributors.
It was crazy
in a documentary.
I kept getting lost. I was like, who's this?
Yeah, who's this guy?
Who's this?
Yeah,
what are they doing? Like,
I just like, there's that thing where it's like, if you're gonna get people on, the benefit for them should be that they're like telling someone's story, right? Because this is like literally to like bring the eyes of the world onto like a tragic tale. The benefit for them was to get like be on telly. Yeah.
I read the Rolling Stone review of it actually the other day before I talked to you, and oh Jesus, they ripped it apart. Like,
yeah.
And they
look, it has been universally panned.
They ripped it apart, but they said they felt this author felt that they were bringing unnecessary attention back to this case and almost making it harrowing again for her family when it didn't need to be done. But I kind of was like, but that could be said about anything.
That could be said about anything. That could be said about us doing what we're doing.
All of us, like anything. We're like, sometimes I do slightly struggle with, not that what we do, but there is that thing where you don't want people to think you're doing this because, you know,
it's a very fine line, isn't it?
The banks and like, you know, like it's not that at all.
It's a very fine line.
About us as well as Irish true crime is not really talked about because we're such a tiny fucking country.
We're also like really reclusive in terms of like, and insular in terms of how we do
also I think it's just becoming a thing. I think like you know, the true crime community within Ireland is in its infancy. It's just starting, like, you know, whereas it's been massive in America for decades. Like, it's been a huge thing. They have channels dedicated to the fucking thing, like, you know what I mean?
And we all watch them.
And we all watch them.
We all watch the shitty reconstruction TV and then come back here and go, I don't like reconstruction.
Yes. I I can't ever watch them. They always remind me of my mum falling asleep on the sofa.
Then she snapped.
You know that one Forensic Files
is great.
and the Scottish lady that narrates it.
Yeah.
That brings back childhood trauma for me.
You know what it is? That knows what
Yeah,
it is.
who watches that? Not me, that's for sure.
I watch it all the time. I go home to my mom.
My mom knows that.
It's on TV all the time.
Yeah.
But that is like, it's at the end of the day, Forensic Files knows what it fucking is. You know
But
what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you know what though, right? There's a right way and a wrong way to tell a story. And I think it's very interesting that, you know, within a few weeks of each other, we had this, and we also had, you know, which again is telling the story of a female victim of, you know, whatever, murder, death, suicide. I mean, suicide in this instance. But then a couple of weeks previous to that, we had American Murder, which again, a female victim, and was so completely different, so completely victim-led in the narrative. So where the victim completely took back control of a narrative that had been stolen from her in the media, that had become solely about her killer, you know, and like as well, interestingly, by a much less experienced director.
But I think you've just absolutely hit the nail on the head. Yeah. And what I mean by that is...
And a female director, I might add, too. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know.
There is no victim here.
No, that's the
thing. There's
they
no victim.
They were trying to find a bad guy.
There isn't a victim here. There isn't somebody that chased her down and she was hiding from someone. There wasn't a moment where she was in peril from an actual other person.
No.
It was just herself.
Yeah.
And that's like what you've just demonstrated in terms of like the entire thing was victim led. There isn't a victim here.
Yeah.
It's just people wanted there to be a bad guy.
People just wanted it.
And the documentary is almost it was leading you down. If you had never heard of this, it was leading you down that path.
Like if I had never heard about this and known about
who did it?
Who did it? Who did it?
Yeah,
Where's the ghost?
Yeah.
Is this a footage of a ghost?
But that is the thing. They wanted you to think there was a bad guy.
They wanted you to think it was a bad guy.
And I thought that was really fucked up too, because I was like, you should have said from the outset, there is no bad guy. Like, because a lot of true crime documentaries begin at the end where they're like, she died, he killed her, this is what happened. Do you know what I mean? But this, they knew they didn't really have a story, so they were creating one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's what my problem was with it. But you know, fair play to them. They're making a ton of money. And
what's his name again? Joe Berlinger. Berlinger. Fair play to him. Never heard of him. Sounds like a nice fella. Hope he gets a few bob on the back of it. I'm sure. You know, he's crying into his millions and his Oscars and himself and Ron. Himself and Ron are on the phone right now going, for fuck's sake, Sarah Jane, Gemma and Emma. Our documentary. We're just going to give up. Yeah, there'll be an announcement in the morning. Sarah Jane, Emma from Murder Most Irish, thank you so much for joining me. Guys, if you don't already, go follow them, rate them, review them, subscribe.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll have you back on again.
We had so much fun.
Thank you.
See the way I didn't even ask? That wasn't a question, that's a direction. We will have you back on again.
Defo.
What are we going to talk about next? Oh.
That's all we've got time for this week, guys. Remember, as always, if you like what we do, if you'd like to show your support for What's Up Doc podcast, make sure to head on over to Apple Podcasts, give us a rate, give us a review, and sure, go on and subscribe to us as well. We'll see you next time, guys. Good luck. Good night. God bless.
Looking for a way to make some quick cash? Well, making money with DoorDash is super easy, guys. I love riding my bike around the city, and now I get to do that while getting paid. With DoorDash, I get to pick my own hours and be my own boss. I get paid on my deliveries and keep 100% of my tips. Not to mention the sign-up process was so quick and easy. Guys, I'm telling you, just download the DoorDash driver app and see how easy it is to start earning cash today.
Every year, we say we'll wake up earlier, exercise more, really rest, and eat healthier. It's hard for us, but for dogs, not so much. Dogs are up at dawn, run for fun, sleep like champs. And they love eating fresh, healthy food every single meal. Give your dog another healthy habit. Real fresh food from the Farmer's Dog. Get 50% off your first box at thefarmersdog.com/listen.